everybody. On this panel today, I'm joined by Esben Poulsson, who is the chairman of the International Chamber of Shipping, and of course, the executive chairman of ENESEL PT Singapore. Welcome, Esben, to this panel.
Thank you very much, Gina.
It's a pleasure to be hosting you on this keynote spotlight interview today. And we would like your input on a rather interesting perspective, shipping a key industry and why. This is kind of like a sell pitch for the industry, but let's go ahead. So
Shipping is a key industry and why? Well, I think if ever there was a time that we have proved to be so has been during this pandemic, because the worldwide distribution of PPE and so forth, as you know, shipping has played a very major role, obviously, as has air. But shipping is has been an out of sight, out of mind industry, and I think you could honestly say that this pandemic has brought into light how important actually it is in so many ways in distributing the world's goods. As you know, more than 90% of goods are carried by sea. And the value of goods carried by sea in 2019 was $14 trillion. So it is a very, very major industry. But as I say, until perhaps this past year, rather out of sight, out of mind.
And definitely, I believe during this crew change crisis, we have seen how crucial it is. And maybe it was one of the very few positives of this crisis in noting the importance of the industry.
Yes, I think the crew change crisis has been industry's number one problem over this past year. I'm happy to say that in ICS, and I checked my notes actually, in our meeting in early February of 2020, we foresaw that this was becoming a problem. So we issued an advisory very early on, in fact, within a week of our meeting then. And then subsequently, we formed a task force, which was then joined by many other associations. We would have up to 80 people on the call, sometimes twice a week, comparing notes and best practices and so forth. And we then developed a set of 12 protocols in cooperation with 15 other associations, including the ITF. And these protocols were ready by, I think, end of April, early May. We passed them to the IMO, who accepted them in full and circulated them in its 170 country membership. And it became the, if you like, standard. We've since revised them any number of times, but they have been the basis of how to do it. Of course, local jurisdictions have made amendments, but overall, the principles of those protocols, we then instigated, pushed very hard for a ministerial summit that took place in London in July with, I think, about 14 countries got involved. We eventually got the issue to the G7, to the G20, and ultimately to the United Nations, where we were very proud and happy that at last the UN formally declared that seafarers are key workers, and this is a status that under the International Labour Convention, International Labour Organization in Geneva, the Maritime Labour Convention was formed there, created there, which is a Bill of Rights for seafarers, and in fact, it's all in there. The problem is that in this pandemic, many countries have simply failed to abide by undertakings that they're signed up to. Seafarers are key workers and should, without any question, be treated as such. At the moment, I think it's only something like 45 countries that have accepted this fact. So it has been a very long road, and not to go on too much about this, but I would say that we made eventually quite a lot of progress into the third quarter of, even in the fourth quarter of 2020, until this new strain, or these new strains emanating from Brazil, South Africa, and the UK further complicated the pictures and set us back somewhat. But the success we had was mainly the ability to reduce the percentage of time in excess of which a seafarer had gone past his normal contract date. And that percentage dropped quite significantly. So that was you could say, our main achievement, if that's the right word. But certainly the problem is still very much with us, and in some jurisdictions are being extremely difficult. What we're now doing is pressing for the vaccine for seafarers to be given every priority at every opportunity to have the vaccine.
Exactly. And while unfortunately there's still a long way to go with the nations, we need to congratulate the ICS for the work that it's been doing. I mean, it's led so many initiatives and so many collaborations within stakeholders towards this mission, which is truly incredible. I mean, we've even seen the key shipping industry being featured in the Financial Times and BBC, so that's great.
It's interesting, just interrupt you quickly, the article that we got in the Financial Times, which I might say was not without a fair push, but our communications team, we have a new 2-person team, and we have an external agency that now work for us almost exclusively. And the combination of these things has, of course, managed or enabled us to highlight these issues much more beyond the normal shipping press, in the global press. And I know our previous transport minister here in Singapore, Mr. Corbyn Wan, who's now retired, but he told me at the time that when he saw that article in the FT, that was when he started giving instructions to his ministry that we need to do something here. So it just goes to show some of these influential news organs do carry weight.
Exactly. So going on to the next point that I would like your input on, if you had to formulate a sell pitch to, say, an investor or stakeholder in the shipping industry to decide why choose shipping and why now, how would that sell pitch go?
Well, it would go in the sense that shipping is an essential industry as the world is currently put together, and I think shipping is not a non-risky business. Let's put it that way. I think everybody knows this. But one analyst I spoke to not so long ago, he said shipping probably lends itself to what we call value investors. That is someone who is looking for a stock to rise, rather than, let's say, a stock that you buy for income. Let's say in the old days, if you bought a major bank, you could probably rely on fairly regular dividends. That is not really shipping's pitch. It's not really a dividend-led type of investment. But I think for an investor to have bought, if you had bought certainly a container company listed in the first half of last year, you would have done extremely well. If you bought a dry bulk company in again, any time up until fairly recently, you would have done extremely well. But of course, it is not a risk-free business. But I would say that the fundamentals of, let's say, dry bulk at the moment is such that demand is quite healthy, not just in China, which is a big driver for dry bulk, but for some of the smaller size of ships, the handy size, the Supramaxes and so on, are doing very well because there is an expectation of infrastructure being in many countries as we come out of this pandemic invested in, and that in turn is always good for the dry bulk market. But in a way, shipping shares reflect the overall economy. I mean, if you take oil, for example, the tanker business is not doing very well at the moment, but there are many analysts who are predicting a very strong second half for tankers, as we had an amazing first half in 2020. The tankers, the contango opportunity was tremendous. And then in the second half, of course, it fell back through lack of demand for oil in many countries as economies slowed down. So but the supply and demand fundamentals, which is always very key in almost all these segments, looks quite healthy at the moment, I would say. I mean, in dry bulk, the new building order book is I read the other day, at a 30-year low. as in terms of a percentage of new buildings to existing fleet. And with all the onerous EEXI requirements coming up in 2023, this could cause some owners to decide not to invest further in the ships, and there will be perhaps a higher demolition or recycling of ships.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Esben, for that. And in a concluding remark, if you had to alter that pitch now to address it to the younger and next generation on the future sustainability of this industry, what would that line, that scenario go like?
Well, I think people can see that we not only have made our 2050 commitments to decarbonize shortly beyond 2050, and to decarbonize or improve by 40% by 2040. I think this is all well known, but I think what is happening in the real world, as someone said the other day, private industry in many cases are ahead of the requirements, because there is now a pressure on whether, if you're a shipper, your customers want you to ship with someone who has the smallest CO2 footprint. And so many carriers are simply finding that as part of their ESG, they need to do better. So there's a real momentum building here. You probably saw the other day that Maersk expect to have a carbon-free ship trading by 2023, 2024. I think this caught everybody by a pleasant surprise. The things like the Maersk McKinney Center for Research for Decarbonization in Copenhagen, together with many other owners, huge funding, working with universities and centers of higher learning all over the world. Here in Singapore, I'm part of an international panel on decarbonization, and we will come out with our report in the next few months, which will be very, very ambitious and full of opportunities. So I think for young people, two areas that young people may find shipping appealing. One is in technology, where I'm told we have a lot of low-hanging fruit, because we are sort of thought of as a bit of a fuddy-duddy industry, although I would say that is changing rapidly. So I've seen a lot of young people coming in, and it's not because they're particularly crazy about shipping, but they just see opportunity for technological improvements and innovation within the industry. That's one area. And then the other is on the environmental performance, where again, whether you're researching ammonia, hydrogen, whether you're dual fuel with LNG and so on, there is a lot of spin-off research and opportunity in these areas, let alone good old commercial, operational aspects of shipping, finance, insurance, and so on. Shipping has many facets, and we're always hoping to get more young people into shipping, and I can't say it's been super successful, but I think I sense there's a bit more interest than there used to be.
I think there definitely is, and it's surely very exciting times for the industry and for young people to be joining it. So hopefully the right messages will be going out there. Thank you very much, Esben, for being with us today. This was the Spotlight interview with Esben Poulsson, ICS Chairman, Shipping a Key Industry and Why. And I'm Gina Panayiotou, the founder of Oceans Arena. Thank you, Esben, once again.
Thank you, Gina, very much. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.